Today, we have the privilege in building resources to demonstrate how an official book resource, the process that we go through. And this will be helpful for those that use theWord. This will also be helpful for understanding the complexities that can be and that are involved at times in building an official resource. These resources don't just leap off the format and into the Word. There's tools that have been either programmed or coded, and there are also the taking the individual time to fix errors or typos at times, or to just get into getting different features nicely done in the Word. And so this morning, as we come into this, I just going to start off with a little bit of a to-do list. So the recent book that we've done was Complete Word Study Dictionary. And you see there's kind of a right here, you see the Old Testament and the New Testament. When we got this format, and I'm going to just show you a little bit about it. We got the format from the publisher, and we had, in the Old Testament, it comes through Quark, and Quark is a kind of a book designer and used it often for print and things, and we got it in the Quark format. We then needed the Quark software to convert it. So let's go ahead and open up a Quark file, and I'll just give you help you understand. So a couple things. It was a learning curve as we worked with Quark and getting into different things. It's a good piece of software, but it has a learning curve. I first went in, I believe, and converted it from the format we were given up to version 9. And we have the front matter. And I'm going to show you a few things. It has the project requires minor repairs. Okay, so we do that. And then we had to go in and list their fonts. And all these fonts, some of them we could find, and some of them we needed to get from other resources and things. And there's some really special fonts in some of this. And we had some of them replaced as it went in and things like that. Okay, we went through and got those in. And go okay. Now in here we had to go through, and in the EPUB we had to decide, because we needed to convert it into EPUB, which ultimately turns into like an HTML or HTML format. And as you look here, you go down through, one of the things that it has is tables. Well, there's a couple different types of EPUB. There is the type of EPUB, and I'll show you. Let's see if I can get it here in just a second. But there's a type of EPUB that is, and we'll go File, Export As. Now we have an EPUB here. There's two types. And you have to kind of wrestle through it. There is a fixed EPUB, which this book right now is set up as a fixed EPUB. And then there is a reflow EPUB. So right here we just did this one, and we needed to fixed because of the tables. So imagine we went through a learning process of, do we need fixed or reflow, and how does that all work? Okay, so the front matter for the Old Testament needed to be fixed. Another thing that's interesting with this Old Testament, it has a font that is pre-Unicode. So if you look in here, and we're not going to get into the text as much yet, but you can see here, this Hebrew looks pretty nice. But if you get in here, let's see if we can select it, if it'll let us do that, and you hit Control-C, we'll go into a new document over here, and Control-V. Do you notice that the Hebrew comes across as like Latin letters, A, B, B, etc., in different forms? That's because it's pre-Unicode. It's not a true Unicode font. That has to be converted. Okay, so even once we get into the EPUB format, let's go in and look at another type of style. So go open. We're going to go into another format here. Another Quark. This is the kind that we would do into reflow. So go in here and we'll open Aleph. So it has some here, list fonts, continue, and you see in here there's some different ones, and you have those. Okay, and get okay. Okay, so you see here again, it has this format like this. This is not the format that we wound up with in the Word. We wanted it into reflow, as in this would be like it's a whole paragraph and not in this table format. because it doesn't really work in the Word. Okay, there's also some transliteration. You notice that that's not quite how we have it now. I'll show you what it looks like in the once it's brought into how it needs to be. So right here, like this. Okay, so, and one way we know how that works is as we go back in here into the format, and we were given the PDF of the book, and we can go into the PDF of the book. We would do these comparisons, look for transliteration, pull this up, zoom out a little bit, jump down here to the actual, let's close that guy, don't need that. Okay, go down here to the text, the Aleph, gotta go through all the front matter, and in a second, once it kind of catches up, and here it is, you can see it right here, but that had to be compared, checked, etc. Okay, so let's continue on. We got it loaded in here. Now this is great and all that, but had to learn how, okay, so this is still not in a reflow EPUB. We had to learn how to build a reflow, add this in, and eventually we came up with the reflow EPUB. Let's see if I can find it again. It's been a little while since I did that portion of it. And so the reflow project, so you had your front matter, and you see there's different versions as we went through and learned, and we have the, let's go in here to the reflow right here, open that up, and we wanted it all in the same format, or sorry, in the same file, so when we exported it to EPUB, it was all in one book, and we could wrestle through and got that conversion process. It substitutes it for this, etc., etc. We went through, and it needed to pull that data. Let's see, it's loading it. Takes a little bit because it's a quite substantially large file. Now this is the reflow. It doesn't look like it here, but when you go to File, Export, it will export as a reflow EPUB. So we can go in here, bringing this up just a little bit, kind of jumping through some of these so you get a little bit more of the idea. So you can see down here ebook type reflow or fixed, and this one's a reflow. Okay, very good. Now you'll see I had to pull in each individual file from the Quark files that before and join them into here. They had to all be joined in. There's some 2,142 pages roughly in this particular print version. And all those had to be pulled in and dealt like that. By the way, this is just the Old Testament. In the New Testament, we had to do a different approach because it was not given to us in a Quark format. So we're going to go ahead and close that. Now we don't need any changes there. Continuing back in here. Okay, so here's the PDF. We'll leave that because we might need to come back into it. Let's go into our kind of our to-do list. We'll close this one. Even that one open anymore. So in the Old Testament, we went through the Quark files, learned about how that worked, the Quark format. We exported the front matter in fixed EPUB. We exported the rest to reflow EPUB. Then we had to come in and load the front matter with detect references on. That's simple, except it's not. Have to go down through and adjust the formatting. And those that have watched theWord videos before, and you do this with all kinds of resources, whatever kind of programming method you use, whether it's a SCML file, well, XML, HTML, HTML, whether it's something else, a text, a CSV, Excel file. There's all kinds of things that happen. And at this stage, you go down through and you come through and deal with your topics and your main topics, your subtopics, things like that. So in this scenario, we have our Old Testament. That would be our primary topic. And inside there, we have some minor links or subtopic links. And we went through, made sure it come in. We got our image. We got these centered. We we have some links here that express what those texts are. Some of this is already done for us in the EPUB. Others have to be modified, like this page number is added in there and adjusted. We have, once again, those links. That's something we did. I'll show you where that's at. Those links are right here at the bottom. And they're done in a very special format. using regex and things like that. You'll go down through here and you have KJV right here. And goes through and we put it in, means King James Version, ignore case. Some of them don't have ignore. All that we wrestle through and work through. And I believe it was a, let's see here actually, if I can find the original EPUB reflow. And so remember, I had to deal with the reflow first. Here. Let's go back out here, into here, go to Quark files. When I converted it into an EPUB, let's see here, into a reflow, it was on June 24th. So keep that in the back of your mind. So June 24th, we'll put that date in here. So roughly June 24th, but remember that's the reflow, and I had some learning that we did first. So June 24th, and then the finalized version here, let's go back in here, was on 8/16. So go back into 8/16, and we'll write that down, and we're going to just put the month year in here. And so the finalized version way down here is August 16/23. Let's just double check that date and go in here. Yep, August 16. Okay, let's do a little bit of calculating. So if you have a calendar, let's see, I got a calendar here someplace. Okay, so we're going to go from June 24th. So that's 24. And we didn't work on it like every day, but we worked on it many hours some days, and it was quite a bit. So the 24th, so 1, 2, 3, 4. What did we say here? Go back again, back to June 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7.5 weeks-ish, around there. So much more than 4 weeks. And it was not the only thing we worked on, but it was something we really heavily labored on during that time. And it was just not just me. There was other team members involved. Our quality person was heavily involved in this resource, and he actually got involved in the conversion process as well. Okay, continuing back in. Let's get back in here. So we load that front matter. Oh, we talked about that here. And you got in and you did these different things. Oh, we have verse detection that goes in. And I'm going to get into a little bit of it, some intricacies into the word that was programmed to deal with that. You have all these hyperlinks, and oh, you got this Hebrew now, and I'm going to show you what it looks like now. So copy that Hebrew, go in here, new page, and whoops, let's get the convert right into the correct encoding. So we're not, now we're in the Unicode, so the Unicode needs turned on, otherwise it shows up as a question mark. And you notice it's actually a Unicode letter. It's Unicode now. That conversion process happened. Okay, continuing back in here. Go down through, you got your vowels and all that. Oh, and then we got some transliteration that's happening here. You got that in the correct format. It's a Unicode letter now, etc. Okay. And when you look at a left, just a real quick second. All this, if I copy it out and I paste it in here, let's bring it up, sorry, will come in as a Unicode. So that conversion process. Okay. Continuing on. Load reflow with detect references. Okay, so we went in and, well, first off, the front matter with detect references. So we went into theWord, we grabbed this, we grabbed our special regex files, those regex rules, which you're just looking at right now, a little bit of, and we brought that in. There's a tool built into theWord using code that Costas has provided from theWord, and then some adjustments and some different things like that to make it work in our scenario. And let me get it to the right get the file over here for you. So we went in and we grabbed this, and then we made sure our detect references were on, which is a special one. All these things were coded in here. So over various books and things, this program theWord, and we've done it in other types of files, and Costas has done this with other code and different things like that. And Rubio has done some. John Graff has maybe not as well. He's gotten into the programming in other ways and done a lot there. So, and we have other team members maybe that'll be joining us and things like that. So we went in and we got the EPUB. Remember, we said it was a fixed. I had to do one here, the front matter, and then I have the reflow here. We had to go fixed. And let's see what it looks like. Let's get about 5 of the files up to the table. Actually, let's get through that books table. So it's going to go open. Now watch. Over here, it goes through. It gets some various items. It gets the verse detecting in. There's some various things. Can't find. Oh, that's okay. Let's just ignore that. Now, you'll notice that the font is in the wrong size. We didn't do as much with this particular file. I did a lot of manual editing to get it into what I want, which takes away some of that repeatability. So I'm just going to edit, select, and I'll show you what that means. So we want it down to, we're going to do 12 just for now. And so there's some things here that happen. So we got some files, the tables needed kind of fixed and things. So you can see what we worked and wrestled, and I wound up going in and manually fixing some of those tables in this particular, the Old Testament one. But a lot of that was done through getting into the EPUB file, and some things were fixed. We'll show you a little bit more about the reflow and how that all worked out. But I had to go in, wrestle through that, get some items, get them in the proper format. So these links are added in, and a lot's going on. And these things were fixed later. So that was a process. Just the front matter itself was a process with the tables and various things like that. Continuing down our list now. Let's go into reflow with verse detecting, and we ignored the concordance. There's a reason to that. Part of it is the time that it would have taken to develop it as well. The other part is that the Word has an excellent searching tool for Strongs and things like that. So the concordance is somewhat not as usable in that sense. Going back in here, go back in. We're going to go special open. We're going to get into the reflow. And I'm going to just show you what it looked like for, like, let's see, right here, 7. So it goes through, digs in. It'll do some verse detection here, and that's what's taking a little bit of time. We're going to come back to this file in just a second. As it goes through, we went through then and we checked for missing Strongs, because down in here, I'm going to type in Strongs. We had to build a search, many different regex to deal with our Strongs. So let's come down in here. So down in here, we have Strongs, and many of these regexes are building up to this point, and it gets over here. We have some tags, like this is an Old Testament Strong, so H. We have our strong tag here, strong str_tw, and various things like that. Then you can see down here are more Strongs. We had some things that we said, nope, don't only tag it if it's this, for example, or don't tag it if it's this. And all of these things were adding up. There are some other Strongs in here. We had some, anyway, along that process, here's some really deep Strongs tags. And along that process, we found, oh, wait a second. What about H1? Well, sometimes maybe that's 1 Corinthians, or maybe it's not a Strong's number. Maybe it's actually maybe it's an index or a list rather, and it went through that. Let's get in here. We'll just ignore that for now. And you'll see now, there's a lot of other things that have been added in. So you come down through, you have a Hebrew tag now, a reverse tag, and a Hebrew tag, and a trans, which stands for transliteration. All these tags, you have your Strongs. Notice they're not in the normal tagging method to the word, because there was the greater and less than signs were in transliteration or in the Hebrew at times. Okay, so we'll leave that up because we're going to use this in just a sec. But notice you got these are properly linked so that they work with the word, and you'll see down here in the bottom taskbar it has the proper link, // Bible, etc., and it's linked into the word. That's built in. That had to be coded. It took a lot of books and resources, and it's always a work in progress, something that we continue to work on. So all these, and remember I said up here, check for bad links. So we went back in here, check for bad strongs. We have a whole bunch of find and replace rules that we've built into theWord, not other really complex coding and wrestling through. Let's get those up. So we have our find and replace pairs right here, and I have check for bad, not that one, the bad strongs, and you can check for this one. That's not the one we're looking for here. We might have done this a little later. Let's look again here. Check for missing strongs with this one. Okay. Let me see if I can find that particular find and replace. Go scroll down through. There's a lot of them because we did different things and we worked for repeatability and be able to kind of wrestle through this. I believe at some point we got, there we are, right there. And so we had hit this, we go in here and we go, oh, is there any more? And I hit F3 or whatever to go down and find, and it would be like oh, that's not supposed to be that way. And it was in different situations, like I said, 1 Corinthians maybe, or maybe it was a list item. Let's see if I have any list items in here for you to understand what I'm talking about. So this is ABC. Some of them were 1, 2, 3 list items. Maybe it was a number like right here. This is a good example. Psalms 39:1. Well, the bracketed is the Hebrew verse, and so that shouldn't be strong. That's the Hebrew verse reference. Okay, so those are some ideas, concepts of what's going on. But continuing on, we needed to delete the title because it was only on the front matter is where we wanted that, and we changed that out to Old Testament, so that shouldn't be in there. This is just one file. There's a lot of files that would get loaded. Fixed internal, there's this, go in there and let's look for that. Fixed internal right here, and we had an A, B, C, and we went down through and we looked for these particular ones. Let's get these. I don't think there's any in this file, and because they were specific special ones that had to be modified, not manually, but by a programming, so to speak. And there should be, there's empty links that weren't all, because not every word always had that. So we went in here, hit F3. This one doesn't have any of those empty links, but we went through and make sure those were processed into the correct way or removed. And continuing down, check for bad TW hype. And sometimes, for example, your regex would miss a certain item. So let's go in here. I believe we saw it earlier. There we are. We go in and look for that. Okay, there's none in this particular file. And each one, so I'm going to actually load the a kind of a master file that was converted. And so let's close this guy so you can see a little bit more of what I'm talking about. Right here, this one. And it's going to take just a second to load. And this one is the whole book. Well, other than the front matter, we did that separate. This is alpha through tau. And just let it load. Okay, so I was going to show you a little bit. So look for bad. There's none of those. But what about, I told you there was a few of these internal links. We'll just show you one of those, for example. That one must have been fixed as well manually. Go into I fixed these before I loaded up. Okay, let's check for empty. We get the empty links. Those were taken out as well. So those are some. You should be able to see more of it now. Okay, let's go bad H. That seemed to be resolved. More bad seemed to be resolved. Those were some items. I don't know if we'll see them right off, but we went through and worked on programmatically dealing with some errors. And let's see here. I believe that was down in here. Dealt with all these by taking out these items, for example, here were the ones that could be Hebrew. And so those were anything with these before could be Hebrew. But if they had Samuel, Kings, Chronicles, or I mean, sorry, yeah, Kings in this format right here, or Kings like this, they were ignored because that's clearly First or Second Chronicles, or First Second Samuel, First Second Kings, etc. Those are some more items. Continuing back into our to-do list, as we went through, we got into do reverse from find and replace only. So this particular how do you say this? Remember I said it was not a Unicode font. Well, it was also, when it was typed in, it was typed in actual Hebrew reverse order. So it was double. I mean, it wasn't a Unicode font, and it was in the opposite order of what it needed to be. So we went in and watched this. So you see BA colon. So this is a reverse one, and that switches it around. We use this reverse. It's been programmed in there. That's something we wrestled through. And going into this one. Okay, so that gives you a quick example of, okay, so that reverses that. Let's continue down in here. Now we replace it. This was a wrestling process. We have what's called a swap characters. Go file, and we're going to go open our swap characters. This is a complex mode. And we'll open here. We have our Hebrew swap characters. So that means, and I'm going to give you a little bit of an example. Let me open it up in a little bigger file, open. And we'll jump down here to the Hebrew characters. So in here, whenever an A, like an lowercase a, it became aleph. Uppercase B became a bet with the center dot. Sorry, my Hebrew is escaping me right now, and so on. There were many vowels with complicated regex to deal with them, and you can see a little bit of it like right down in here, some of the vowel points and things like that. Okay, so that was wrestled through, and that took a lot of time, and going back into here and double checking, is this gamet, how does that work, and what letter is that connected to? Over and over that process went through, and then it was in a regex mode. There's a lot of other things in the swap care. So I'm going to go ahead and open the Hebrew swap, and so it turns it into regex mode. It's on the swap mode. We wanted it to change it into Cardo 14 point, which is the standard font for official modules, and we went in here and like this, boom. And it goes through, it replaces the letters just as it needs. So here you'll see there is a semicolon, an an A, and a B. So the semicolon becomes kamat, or the vowel letter for A, basically. And then the B becomes bet. So as we do this here, watch it go. And there it goes, puts it into the correct order, converts it, and leaves it like that. Okay, excellent. So that's, and this is done over and over and over, and it has something like replace all here, and it goes through and works through those. But each of those had to be navigated and dealt with and studied out and thought through. Okay, continuing in our process here, go back to our to-do list. Now we check for vowel error. So some of them, as I was wrestling through, you probably noticed if you look down here at the very bottom, there was some, if it was missed, I turned it into vowel error. As I was kind of wrestling through, and is there a problem? Is there this? Okay, and kind of working through that process, making sure we didn't miss stuff. Then we go to transliterated fix. We turn off word wrap. There was a reason, as it went through, some transliteration would wrap a line or do some odd things, and so that had to be dealt with. So let's turn on transliteration. We need different swap characters for this. Open over here. Go into our swap characters, and we went into transliteration, and we get into here, go F3, and watch what happens. It converts it into the appropriate A with a overline, B with an underline, things like that. And we had to wrestle through each one of those. I want to show you what those look like over here as well. Transliteration. You'll notice there's another one here, only vowels. That was used in another scenario, mostly in the front matter. So we had different things when it was A followed by a greater than sign, it would became a with a dot under it. And a lot of these different things, there's different signs and symbols had to be wrestled through. Okay, so we got those. Continuing back in here, and by the way, we had a find and replace. Yeah, you saw that right here. Okay, continuing back into here, check for remaining trans. And these ones were an interesting one. So I will turn that on. It was a random, and this one was why I had to do the brackets, the curly brackets, instead of a greater or less than sign around Strong's, because these ones are in random places, somewhat like this. They're not necessarily something that we could surround with the transliteration signs or tags, so we could make it easier. They were just scattered, so we had to work through that. How can we deal with the scattered? And then we have our superscript, similar thing. And because what would happen is as you would change the font, the superscript would be lost. So let's do our superscript here. And so once it got fixed, you could go back in. So I'm going to jump down here. So inside here, if I was to just do the superscript like this, watch what happened. Then go back to transliteration. It would be lost. We would lose that superscript. So let's do it with it. Now go back in and then do the superscript, and there it is. So there's a order process also. Things have to be done in the correct order. And that makes it done right. Continuing back in, we had remove those empty links. I believe we dealt with that a little bit up there, but we got in here again. Change these links back in, and so now you had to go back through. And this one, we had to go through and code this. Where is it? And by the way, it took a while to go through this find and replace and build it. This was a tool we programmed into theWord. So I'm going to show you what this does. So that takes the Strong's, converts it back into the appropriate format. Okay, very good. Continuing on, there was a do clean start, do clean end. So this one, I don't know if you'll see it as well. It's up in here. Go down through our find and replace pairs. Clean empty, clean for check for bad. And let's see, is it this guy? Oh yeah, so you see the empty blank there? So it would be, otherwise your link in the Hebrew would wind up with the Hebrew letters and a space. So that could mess up things as far as lemmas being searched for and things like that. So those had to be taken out and dealt with. Continuing on, didn't seem to be any much at the end. Those were other things. Then we had a fix file that John did. And that one is, so I would go in here, file, open, find and replace pairs. And we actually did this. We actually built this during this process where you could replace all pairs start depending on caret. And this one, or the replace all pairs. We built this other new one in here because it just found one situation, dealt with it, found another situation, dealt with it. And if we wanted to try that one, I don't think these ones are going to do it because I believe we needed to have it in Strong's. There we are. So, okay, here's a good example. And finally, and this one should have been a list. So we'll change that out, and now it's a list item. It was something that had to be dealt with, and brought through and taken care of. These other ones were probably dealt with in another situation. Perhaps. I believe he dealt with them right here, and other ones in here. There's a lot of those to deal with. Okay, continuing on. We did, okay, should have got that. And sometimes we did the deduct all again just to make sure if we missed anything after all those fixes were done. There was some manual programmatically fixes done right here. So First Chron became First Chronicles. There's other ones. Genesis 35, 1 through 43 should have been Genesis 36, 1 through 43. There's some other ones that we dealt with Publisher. I've talked to them about what about these typos, or how should they be? One choice should be choice. Went through that. Had some hyphen issues. I dealt with those. There's a lot in this regex file that deals with things, and don't have the time. If you watch some of the theWord videos, you'll understand what some of these are doing. There's a lot going on here. Oh yeah, here's that link is transformed over to this, etc. We took out some BR, which stands for like bracketed or like a return, and dealt with all that. We down here, these ones were ignored. There, I think there's even a comment tag at times. Oh, that had to be replaced. That was earlier. I don't remember even the reason behind that comment tag anymore, but that was something we had to do. So all those, now we have implicits. This one, so let's jump down. Let's pretend we've gone through, we've done the different stages, and I have the stages saved in files right here. For example, this is the reverse, this is reverse Hebrew, this is reverse Hebrew transliteration, random transliteration, you know, all those plus that, superscript, Strong's, clean, find replace one that John got us. Then there's something called implicit. Now, implicit is an interesting thing. So this is when there is a verse reference that doesn't have like Jeremiah or JER.1616, as you can see right here on the screen. It is like out by itself. It's done, the author implies where it's at, or it's implicitly implied. So we have a tool over here under detect. It's marks non-links. So you don't have to deal with, I'm going to show you just so I'm going to have to actually stop the word here in just a second. But so you see what it's doing. It's going through, it's detecting. So you'll see there, right there, the 29, 2, and 3. Those were not marked because they didn't have Genesis with them. You have Ezra 5:8. It's in a parentheses. You have others, 33, 34. All these, as it's going down through, it's going through, jumping through, and it's like, oh, missed one. That one's bracketed, so it's Hebrew, but shouldn't be marked. So that's, you have to know that as we go through. So we're going to hit escape, and that process been canceled. Now we go up, and we have a tool. I'm going to go to the very top so you can get a good idea what's going down. And we go in, and we need, let's load back in our other find and replace. In here we have a find and, oh, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to go to find and replace, not the whole file. And in here we open up our normals and we search for markup. And this yellow is a special yellow. It's not in the highlight quite. It's just a little bit different. And we did that on purpose. So you don't want to use it elsewhere, because when we go to detect, we can remove it easily. So I hit F3 will find it, or F8. So let's say we know this is Daniel. So we go in here, and this is the implicit area. We go into Daniel. Select Daniel. If you leave it at 0, if it's not a chapter, it would be indicated. If it's not a chapter, it will be, you don't, sorry, let me rephrase that. If it was Daniel chapter 1 and you wanted the whole chapter, you need to make sure that it is marked as a 0. If it's like, let's say Daniel 1:5, well, but you just have the 5 but not the 1, well, then you need to do implicit any and make sure you go to chapter 1, so it gets 1 and then the verse. So here though, it gives us it has the chapter and the verse. So we're going to hit F7, and I'm not going to save it. I'm going to actually turn off autosave. And now notice it marks it, links it, and it saves some contextual cue so that when the find and detect goes through, it looks for those words and then adds in the reference link. Well, what about 14 though? Okay, so that's not, you can't just say do a 0 because we don't want chapter 14 of Daniel. We want chapter 4, verse 14. So you can hold down Alt, left click the 412, and if you give a second, it'll, sometimes longer, it'll bring up chapter 4 there. Now we need to go to the implicit any. Do not start from top. So it starts from the last find, because if you start from top, any comma 14 will be found, and then go or whatever. So, and then select comma 14. And if you can get a little bit more, don't get 11 because 11 is the Hebrew term. So ignore that one. Press F7 and it goes in. Now we have, if I look down here, it should be 414. And if I have a clipboard turned on in the Word, I can even verify these. Oh, this is correct context, da 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 da. Sometimes we do that. And it depends on what we're doing and how it's going. So that's just a small, tiny taste of implicit. And you do that in the entire book. Over and over and over. And sometimes you check it, sometimes you fix it, sometimes there's a typo. It takes work. We don't always get the typos fixed because sometimes that's on the publisher. Sometimes we do if it's like, oh, that's really understandable, or we have the steam just to kind of wrestle through it. These are some things that we have to make decisions on. How much time do we invest in each book? If we invest all our time to get one book perfect, we can't really release any other resources. So those are decisions we have to make as we go. So that's implicit. Now you join the front matter. So I'd go in here, let's say da da da, go in here, we'd insert a file. Let's just pretend our implicits are done. Go join that front matter and okay, we've got that. We got the front matter and the Old Testament. And you're like, oh wow, we're done. No, we haven't even done the New Testament yet. That's just the Old Testament. And we have a few more things. Check for bad font. Oh, so we go in here and we're like, what do we got here? Go under book editor, clean, used and unused in fonts, and generate a list. This is good to go down. We don't always do this, but you go through and you look, do we have any odd fonts that are not our desire? Like, well, there's one right there. What is that one doing? And so go through and fix that and find that and deal with that one. And you continue through this list and you see if there's any others. Oh, by the way, if you look for this one, if I let me show you what that is. Coming back in here, this was an interesting fix to wrestle through. Let's see, I believe it was bad font. And you go F3. And there it is. See? Right there. That shouldn't be in there because, one, watch this. Control copy. Go into a new file. And that's not even in Hebrew. That had to be dealt with. There are, I believe there was one or two instances. Oh, yeah, one more instant down. Maybe that was the only one. I think it might have been the only odd scenario. Oh, there it is. Right there's another one. Had to deal with that. Okay, so you can see the wrestling back and forth and the time it would take. 7.5 weeks, apparently. Oh, okay, let's go to the New Testament. This is an entirely different format. It's not HTML. We didn't get it in Quark. We got it in a better format. We got it in SCML. And I had to, oddly enough, I had to wrestle through something here. So we got it, and there was each, oh, that's not one. Come on. Well, we also did get InDesign, and then later we got the SCML, and that was much better. I left all the way through, and then there was this huge version down here. And I'm like, okay. And by the way, that's over here as well. I'm going to go over here. I believe it's the same one. Well, a little different, but similar, perhaps. And that actually is the entire dictionary. Alpha through Omicron. Sorry, Omega. Wow. And so we went through there, and okay, so now you go into the New Testament. We had to wrestle through, look at the file, just like we did in the Old Testament. We didn't have to do Quark, which was nice, but we had to go through and, okay, what's the topic? What's the subtopic? Is there anything going to need to be changed? So here's Greek, and it's in this, what's this, HTML format. I mean, it's SCML, but it has some HTML characters kind of things in there. What is that? Okay, so that's actually the Unicode in there. That's helpful. That really then you have the SEM. This becomes a transliterated text. There is even a little bit of Hebrew scattered in here. So all those, you have the paragraph, you have path, you have, in this one, the front matters joined to it. So we had to, and we even have this index, English word index that we wrestled through. Oh, we have some of those abbreviations that are explained there. Let's see here. Oh, here's that Hebrew I was telling you about. Oh, but it's not in Unicode. That means it needs converted also. And it doesn't mean it's always the same as the Old Testament. It might be different. Wrestle through that process. Let's see. Down in here. So acquainted. And then you have your reference, which this one, so you saw that some of the Strongs, why did we have to wrestle with the Strongs in the Old Testament and the New Testament? Well, it was just a number. It didn't say H111 or 1110. It just said 1110. Deal with that. A little easier since it's XREF in the New Testament, that helps. XBR was links, and those are those verse references. That takes time. Wrestle through that. Let's go ahead and load this, and then we'll go back to. So we're going to start in the New Testament now. We don't want to change any files here. Go into the New Testament. And in the New Testament, let's load that up. Okay. Don't believe in the end we just used the front matter was joined in there. Okay, so that's loading. So get ready. We checked for tags. This one right here. So I went in and I was wrestling through that file format. Go open it so you can see what it looks like. And I was wrestling through. These are the tags and some, and I finding the appropriate tags. So here's PR, another one apparently, and just wrestling through how to handle tags, how to handle these table tags. Those were fun. Because I'll show you what it looks like now. So go to the very top here. So we had to go through, these tables were dealt with, brought into the 100% width, taken care of. We've got the Genesis and their abbreviation, the books in the Old and New Testament. We have, here's that Hebrew, that reverse stuff. You saw that in the Old Testament. You got your trans tags again. Wrestle through all these. You got your vowel tag, vowels and all that. We dealt with those over and over. And here's that index, that translational reference index, which is excellent. It's not in the Old Testament. Unfortunately, it just wasn't part of that resource. But we have Aaron, and then you have your G. Notice this. We got that tag linked back in. We didn't do Strong's because we wanted to link just back into this same resource. And then you have your references. But they're underlined. So we have a tool up here under standard formatting. There's a lot for our standardization for the word, and you remove link underline. Okay, that deals with those. Back in here, go back into the top of the New Testament. Check. Let's check this out. Okay, and check for tags we missed. These were other ones. So we go through here, and boy howdy, you deal with that one. And then you loaded it. And you clean those underlined. You remove that title again because we just only need it on the whole book. This is added in so theWord has something to grab onto at least when it's making a general book or a dictionary. Then you do your reverse. We saw that again. Yep. So we get in here. Get your find and replace. We got different set of find and replace for the New Testament, because some things were a little different. Bring it up over here. Yeah. So we went in, we got our reverse was the same, because we made it the same basically. We went through and you reverse that. Now that's just a single letter, so it doesn't really do anything, but there are situations where it does. And so goes through, deals with that, dealt with all those. Then you get into your Hebrew only. This one got a little tricky if I remember right. Swap characters. So go into your Hebrew, and I believe I built it as a tool that could work together. So even though it had some scenarios that were vowel or not vowel, So vowel alone is a little more different than a letter with a vowel. Dealt with that. Then we did our transliteration fix. We went through, made sure word wrap is off, going through that, and go deal for that. We checked for bad TWA, this one just in case, because sometimes, it could have anything dealt in there. There shouldn't be anything anymore, I hope. Basically, that was a hyperlink with another hyperlink inside of it. And you can't have two inside. You can't have an outer and an inner. It has to be a single. Do the clean start. Check that out. Okay. Detect all. Let me take that A out. I won't worry about that. Go through that. Do the implicit procedure all over again. So remember, go back in here. You detect. Mark it on that. We'll go in here so you can see through. It runs down through the list. It's going through. Usually you do this after detect all, unless you've done detect all and load, different things like that. So it has to run through. And if you notice this scroll bar over here, it's just kind of gently moving. It's not moving fast. It has to wrestle through all this. And the implicit, by the way, is based off of this regex that John, who's often does our quality control, and many, many other things. Works in the forum, works with converting modules also. He's done a lot through the years, and that was developed and expanded by him when we wrestled through that. And then we loaded some more, and this is where I said he helped with the conversion process, because he went in, and let's go to find replace pairs. Nope, not there. I think it was in the... Actually, yeah, it was over here in the detect, I believe. He went in and did the implicits in the New Testament. And all these. And I would like to show you what that looks like. So this is the whole file. He went through the book, the New Testament, and note. Goes down through, look for these, converts it to Matthew 24, etc. All those things. And it is 968 lines long. That means he went through, did maybe research, maybe checked it, went through over and over and over and over and over, back and forth, almost 1,000 times, 968 times, I believe that was. And then let's say you got all that data. So let's say, nope, we're not saving that because I don't want to change any of that data. We went in and we have our combined now. So we have our combined here. This is where we got that front matter, that Old Testament, and the New Testament. All these are brought together in this big file. I believe there are some 8,000 topics in the Old Testament, roughly, more than that, roughly, and 5,000 to 6,000 in the New Testament. Takes a little bit to load. We're going to go ahead and let it load. And you could see, even just while we're sitting here, you have a link for these items. You have a link for, so these links over here, you have a self tags. Each and every one of those are dealt with and brought together into this. So, okay, let's see if it's loaded yet. Not yet. And let's go ahead and close this down. We don't need this open anymore. So now you can see a little bit more further along is brought through. We made sure you know your indentations and dealt with those things. Some of them come in from the files. More often in the Old Testament, the SCML didn't have that as much. We had to deal with some indentations and bringing those together. You got your Old Testament now. Then you go into your book build. To the word's tired right now, basically. You had our configuration file. And this configuration file is a combined one. We have the name of the book, abbreviation, where it's from, publisher, who did it, who was involved in it, Strong's in the topic tree, different things about if pictures should be put on their own paragraph, if so it works with the word correctly, what format it's going to be in. Oh man, we wanted a topic size. We used Cardo for that, so we didn't have to include another font. There's just a lot in there, and that's the configuration file. Then there was an about file, and that brought it in, has some of the word features. All those things over those different weeks and days brought it together and let's turn off the PDF here. That's Old Testament. We also had a PDF for the New Testament, brought together to form what you see now as the complete word study dictionary. And we chose to do the Old Testament and New Testament as a pair instead of separate, so it would work better with the Strong's setup in the Word. So that means you can set just the complete word study dictionary into the Strong's here. And it will work better with that. And there you go. You have it right there. And not only will it work with the New Testament Greek, when you're in the Old Testament, it'll work as well. And that's why the combined, I know the price is a little higher because it's combined. Instead of trying to buy the Greek or the Old Testament separate, it kind of brought the price up, bringing them together. But that was a necessary thing to make it work better as an overall module. So now you can see the overall New Testament and what we did and fixed and changed and wrestled with. We have the Old Testament and how that works and wrestled through. So hopefully, as you kind of understand the process a bit more, it'll make more sense why we choose to leave things in and choose not to include things. Also, the wrestling that goes through. Now, not every module requires has a it has a Unicode and you don't have to deal with replacing. But there are some that do. And not always do we have great formats. We try to get better formats from the publishers. This one was a little unique. We really wanted to get this project out there, and so we were willing to invest more time by using Quark, dealing with that, and also doing the investment of it all. But it is time to move on to other resources and that are out there that you can see some of those in the newsletter that we'd like to get done. There might be other ones on the horizon. Thank you. Thank you for your prayers for us as we work and wrestle through resources and understand and what God has done through the years through Costas and John Graff and Rubio and others that have gone to be with the Lord and different things like that. Continue to pray for us, and hopefully this has been something that will encourage you as you use these resources. Thank you for your time. God bless. Bye-bye.